Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I'm your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. You see a different background here. I'm in just some random stranger's house. That's why I'm in Oklahoma City, having covered game one of the Nuggets semifinal round against Oklahoma City. It's one of the craziest innings I've covered live in my career. At the Nuggets win, and I will touch a little bit on that with my guest today, but happy to be awake, to be alive, the adrenaline of covering a playoff team. There's nothing like it. And we saw that last year with the Broncos, right? We saw that last year with the Broncos. So when you see the excitement of the Nuggets or even the disappointment of the Avs, it only hurts and it only feels more because they're in the playoffs. Every feeling and emotion is amplified by the postseason. And we saw it play out in real time Monday night with the Nuggets. We saw it last year when the Broncos ended their 9-year playoff drought. And can they now take that next step? Well, to do it, they're going to have a huge contribution from this rookie class. Who's going to be the key factors? What about contract extensions? What are the X factors on this team? Well, I will be joined by Darren McKee, my friend DMac from Altitude Sports. We're going to chop it up. We're going to catch up, get some of his views on the draft and some of these rookies that have to step forward. And again, what are some of the X factors if the Broncos want to eventually become a team like the Nuggets with that championship medal, with that resilience, with that connectivity, that ability when every fiber of your being is telling you don't have a chance, that you can't take a hint and you don't listen. So what a wonderful night for the Nuggets. When are we going to see that for the Broncos? We're going to get to all of that after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggatt Injury Law a call. That is my friend, Darby Hoggatt. I've known Darby for the better part of a decade. We traveled the country watching our boys play baseball. We talked a lot of Broncos. He's the one that told me to do this podcast. I'm so happy he did. Darby is the one who becomes your good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. He will take the case. He will put the work into it. He will make it right. Again, if you have been injured at work or hurt in an accident, give Darby a call. Go to the website. Find his team at hoggattlaw.com. Welcome back to the Broncos podcast. Let's just get right into it. I am joined by my friend Darren McKee. You know him as DMac. He's on middays with PhD, with Tyler Columbus, and Scott Hastings. They're holding it down at Altitude, and it's obviously a good day to have him because we're going to talk a little bit of Nuggets here on the back end of this. But this was Broncos podcast, and the Broncos DMac rookie minicamp. It used to be this was a huge deal, but because of the way the Avs and Nuggets have played over the last several years, I'm not saying Broncos would ever get lost. They never will. Mm-hmm. But at times like this, they get overshadowed by a postseason game. I do want to, before we forget, because of the nature of what happened, because I was following you on Twitter, like most do.
Yes.
Just your initial reaction, and then we'll go right to Broncos, when Aaron Gordon makes a three. Aaron Gordon, who last year was so bad from three-point range, teams didn't even guard him. Now he's shooting roughly, 40%, 44% from three. Your initial reaction when you saw that shot go down?
Oh, we freaked out in the house. We were just, there aren't many moments in sports that really get you off the couch, literally get you off the couch screaming. And I was watching with my younger son and my wife and the two cats, and they were the craziest ones out of all, which was kind of weird. But it was amazing. And if you know Aaron Gordon's story, and it was a little bit more pronounced afterwards as you were there with his two nephews, because, of course, very, very tragically, his brother died last year, and he switched from number 50 to 32. And he brought his nephews on stage with him. I should just go back to you because you were there, and I thought that was a very poignant moment. Our reaction was, you got to be kidding me. I cannot believe they won. I still can't believe they won. And then to see AG with his nephews was just kind of another really, really interesting side of the story.
What was so strange, like the greatest thing I've ever covered in my career was the Rocktober with the Carter Rockies, because they were a 500 team for most of the season, and then they ultimately won 21 of 22 games.
Right.
And when you're covering it and living it, it was like covering a high school team that gets hot and just beats everybody. Mm-hmm. But it was unexpected. And that last night brought me back to that emotionally, where it felt like, DMac, the Nuggets were down by 10 the entire game.
Yeah.
It just felt like they're down by 10, they're down by 10, they're down by 10.
Yep.
And you looked up And Jokic wouldn't let him go away. For all the credit, and I wrote this in my column today, for all the credit to Aaron Gordon, because he had to make the shot. Nikola Jokic refused to let
Right.
them lose. I have never seen. He almost had a heel turn like Hollywood Hogan. He had the crowd booing him. They're screaming free throw merchant at him. He probably could have been ejected if that one on Chet Holmgren was a flagrant, because he basically sharpened his elbow like a number 2 pencil on Lou Dort's head. I mean, he was playing with an absolute venom to him, but the Thunder screw up. The foul strategy with 3 makes sense, but you got to let them dribble.
Yeah.
They were literally fouling as if they were trying to get the ball back and shoot. They were taking off tenths of a second, and it backfired, but covering it in the moment. The last time I remember a stadium going that quiet, I covered the Astros, Cardinals. I think it was like the 04 playoffs. I can't remember the year now. Brad Lidge was pitching. Albert Pujols hit a ball that's still going that had a flight attendant on it. And that old Minute Maid Stadium, it literally was like somebody turned the volume from 11 to 0, and you could hear the Cardinals players talking in the dugout.
Wow.
It reminded me of that. It's just a moment in sports where it's so unexpected, and an entire 18,000 people swallowed their tongues at the same time.
The crowd looked like cardboard cutouts from the movie Celtics Pride, one of the worst sports movies of all time, where they couldn't get enough people in the stands, so they had cardboard cutouts. I swear to God, go back and watch Celtics Pride. It might be the worst movie of all time, and that's how they filled the stands. There was something very, I don't know, you were there, I wasn't, so it just didn't seem to be that intimidating of a place to be at. I don't know how loud it is, but it was just a weird vibe. And it's like when I see a crowd put on the t-shirts, and I'm seeing the people on the front row. Those are the most expensive seats, and they're all putting on the t-shirts. Like, that would never happen at a Nuggets game, Troy, in a million gajillion years. To me, it's just a sign of a team that's just like excited to be there and doesn't have the same experience. The team doesn't have it. The crowd doesn't have it. And you get a crowd that's probably more like a high school or a college crowd rather than a pro crowd. And I'm not trying to define a team by the audience. However, I will say that it's just not been there. And the moment's just a little too bright. And Dagnall, with his, foul strategy, dude, you kind of choked, bro. Like, I get it, and he defended it afterwards, but you're doing it with like a minute to go. I mean, that's way too much time, don't you think, Troy?
Yeah, again, when you do that, he said afterward he stayed steadfast that it was the right strategy. And when you don't want to give up a 3, I understand his thinking, but you got to let him bring the ball in and dribble. They were literally fouling the moment they touched it, so it kept it was like the clock wasn't moving for like 4 possessions.
Right.
And that's where they overthought it. I don't think it was communicated to them well enough that, hey, you got to let them dribble out and then foul them. Because they weren't going to get a 3 up in back court. A couple of those fouls were like in back court. Like, let him dribble up to half court.
Right. It was insane. Whatever. And Holmgren, he missed that. Those were huge. And I love how 2 things that I loved. First of all, that was weird on the second miss. Like, nobody wanted to rebound the ball for a second. It was just like, okay.
Christian Brown said that afterward. He's like, I did a great job of Russell and I just staring at the ball, figuring out who wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, fine. And again, Oklahoma City, you're not crashing the boards. And that's where, I do know how the Nuggets won. They out-rebounded the Thunder by 20 rebounds. So that's how they won. And but still the 18 turnovers. But from that moment, Russell Westbrook, a lot of times, would have taken that ball just right to Chet Holmgren. He would have. He would have just driven the lane. And Aaron Gordon would have driven the lane too for the pass. And for whatever reason, they were just really in tune with each other. And Holmgren had sunk back to the basket, sort of anticipating that moment. Westbrook sees it. And this is all happening so quick. AG bounces outside. And I don't know if it really wasn't about taking a 3. It was just getting an open shot. It just so happened to be from 3, where he's fine. He's comfortable from. And just the whole sequence was pretty freaking awesome. So, hey, they won a game. I never thought in a million years they were going to win. You see that all the time. You're down by 10. You get to 4. It goes back up to 8. You get it to 6. It goes to 9. You know what I mean, Troy? Like, you just quite don't get over that hump. And they did it until the last shot of the game. I cannot believe they stole game 1. That is unbelievable. Now anything's possible.
It's a series now. Like
Yeah.
I had them full disclosure losing in 6. They got a shot to win it now because they just stole home court advantage, and they didn't play great. The effort was great. The competitive spirit was off the charts, but they didn't shoot threes particularly well. They turned the ball over too much.
Yep.
Like they did a lot of things. If you would see the box score and hadn't watched the game, you would be convinced they lost.
Yep.
Jokic wouldn't let them lose. And that's
Awesome.
that one player can define a team, and he's so much more vocal now. And I wrote that in my column.
Yep.
There's a layer of him we've never seen, like this version. And when I watch that team and we tried to do seamlessly to Broncos, it's like, how does that happen next for the Broncos? Like, can Bo Nix in a couple years be that guy? Can he be, when you look at the Broncos now, we're post-draft, we're post-free agency, how do the Broncos get to a point where they're able to win a road playoff game? Or host a home playoff game? When you look at kind of the macro view of this team, I haven't talked to you since the draft, but pretty much everything's done now. They might add one piece or not, but the work's over. How do the Broncos now take that next step from a 10-win team that a team that can end the Chiefs' 9-year run of AFC West championships?
Well, Bo Nix can't be Jokic in the next couple of years, but he can be Christian Brown. How about that? And Christian Brown has emerged as a vocal and physical leader for the Nuggets. If nobody's paying attention, I compared Christian Brown right now to me as the Gabriel Landeskog of the Nuggets. He's not your best player, but he might be your best leader. Really, seriously. And I think that is happening right now. Bo Nix can be that. And if Bo Nix can be that, that's good enough to win in the playoffs. I don't know if it's good enough to win a championship and a Super Bowl, but it's certainly good enough to win 11 or so regular season games and I think win a wild card game, which is where I'm setting the bar for this team. And you know what, Troy? It is good enough in 2 years to win a Super Bowl. Seriously. Turnarounds can happen quickly. Now, the draft, sort of like a rich man's draft. Right. A lot of luxury picks in this draft, okay? And the Broncos and the Paytons have set themselves to the point right now where it's like, okay, we'll trust you guys. A lot of things went well. You know the team better than we do. Fine. But taking Jahdae Barron, what a luxury pick. I mean, great athlete, great player. I'm not saying anything bad about him whatsoever, and I understand how much they liked him when he dropped. But I heard that they could have easily moved back, taken Trayvon Henderson, and likely maybe Arroyo in the second round or the tight end of their choice. And I understand they really like Ferguson, the local kid from Heritage High School, too, who went to Oregon with Bo Nix. So that would have been the very traditional way to go about it in terms of filling your needs. The Barron pick sort of set the dominoes for kind of everything else. And, okay, you love Harvey. Fine. But, listen, you're rolling the dice a little bit, and you definitely jumped up to take Harvey, right? They didn't I think they would have been – well, we found out later Jacksonville was interested in him. So, why wait? So I don't think they don't like Harvey. I understand they really like him a lot. But they just went against the norms, Troy. They went against the norms just a pinch. You drafted a punter and a basketball player. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is right. This was a draft that they're telling you, we think we're close, really close to make some of these luxury picks.
That's what I remember writing that. Andrew Mason and I talked about this too, and I think you and I may have as well. But they like this team more than we do. They like their receivers, tight ends, and running backs more than we do. Yeah. And some of it's fantasy league driven. Like we see the NFL through the prism of offense, and they don't have enough offense for me. But that doesn't mean they don't in their own building. I'm just saying what we have seen, they don't have enough offensively to go on the road and beat a Buffalo or a Baltimore or maybe even a Kansas City. Excuse me. But that's why the R.J. Harvey pick was so fascinating, because you had a chance to maybe move up for a Warren or even get an Arroyo later. And everyone keeps telling me, Troy, they have Ingram. I'm like, dude, he's 31.
Right. 2 years injury. Max. Right.
Yeah, you miss. If he gets hurt, we go right back to the days wandering in the darkness with Adam Troutman, Nate Atkins, and Lucas Kroll.
Right.
And then Harvey, I mean, people don't understand when I ride the running game, I get nobody passes more on first down DMac than Sean Payton. I understand it. So the back has to be versatile. But Javonte Williams had 513 yards rushing. It's the lowest total of a Sean Payton leading rusher in his 17 years coaching.
Right.
And now the onus is on Harvey. And what I think, at least what I've heard internally, I don't know if it matches what you've heard, they really believe Estime, the two of them can combine and make this back. And Estime, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because he was 20 years old when he got into the league last year. There's certainly room for growth, but he can't put the ball on the ground. He's got to keep the confidence of the coaches and have a really good camp. But when you see R.J. Harvey, and I encourage people to read Luca Evans' piece in the Denver Post about it, as Roy Jones Jr., his relative, the boxer, talking about it, and just the sacrifice this kid made to go from a great option quarterback in high school at 5'8" to a walk-on at Central Florida to a second-round pick. But again, I don't know if he can catch the ball. They tell me he can, but if he can't, the pick didn't make a lot of sense there.
Yeah.
But I'm giving Peyton the benefit of the doubt, as I did with the Bo Nix. What do you see when you see Harvey? What are you hearing that why they're so confident that just adding him is going to fix that running back room?
It was a cocky draft, Troy. It was we're smarter than the average bear. That's what it was, and that is very in line with Sean Payton. It's how he felt about Bo Nix, by the way, where he had an evaluation that was different than everybody else. And from what I understand, it was Henderson from Ohio State and Harvey. Like, that was it. And they were like 1A and maybe 1B, with Henderson being 1A. They just could not get away from Barron once he fell, or they would have. So Harvey wasn't the first choice. The first choice was to drop back a couple spots, gain some momentum, gain some picks, probably move up in the second round to get the tight end. And had they done that, all of us would have said, awesome. Like,
great draft. Right.
Yeah. None of us would have said, oh man, I can't believe they didn't get Barron when he dropped. None of us would have said that. None of us. So I think they really do like Harvey. I think that is absolutely legit. So they weren't taking a flyer on somebody that was kind of like, well, let's find out. I think they really like Pat Bryant too, another kind of a overdraft. And to me, I guess he's a more sure-handed version of little Jordan Humphrey. He's not a blazing guy. And he seems like a tough dude who's willing to block. My issue, and I'll Troy, anytime a Broncos player can be interviewed by me and you, and we're looking eye to eye with them. Because if they say Harvey's 5'8", I mean,
he's a bowling ball.
Right. I get that he's
fire hydrant bowling ball. He's just.
I get it. But you know who else is pretty tall and strong are linebackers, defensive ends, guys that you got to chip and block. And if you're going to be in there on first down, Troy, like you're saying, unless you're just some sort of, gadget guy that's just a giveaway every time you're in the game, you're going to have to do that stuff. And, Javonte was actually pretty good at that. He was a pretty good blocker.
He was great. He was great at pass pro. I joked that he was great at pass pro because he ran for 1 yard on first and second down.
Well, another thing, too, and I'm a little cynical, but I'll give him sort of the benefit of the doubt, is when you watch these college highlights, the hash marks are further apart. The lanes are just so much more wide open, Troy, in the NFL or NCAA than the NFL. And it is so much more in the NFL. If it's designed for 3, can you get 5? Can you get 5 to 9, 9 for 13? You know what I'm saying? And maybe 2 or 3 times a year, you'll get some sort of, 50, 60 breakaway play. And that is awesome when it happens. That is absolutely awesome. And it's good to have that ability. But, that'll be 3 or 4 times, Troy, maybe a year. The vast majority of your carries are going to be, in the middle of the field where there's not much room, and you got to withstand the punishment. And I get it. He's in great shape and in the bowling ball and all that. But he's still a smaller dude. He still is. No matter how many chin-ups he can do, he's still a smaller guy.
And you brought up a great point, because part of what the damning criticism of the running game last year is no explosive plays. Bo Nix led them in runs over 20 yards. He had like 6. And that, for me, is where Harvey, where this puzzle piece will fit. Because I'll be honest, I don't see it right now. I'm not saying it can't.
Yeah.
I just don't see it, having watched him in college, that he's going to be a 3-down guy. But if he's able to give you 5 to 10 runs of 15 yards plus, that changes a game. And they didn't have that last year at all from their running back. So maybe that's it. To your point on blocking, people say, "Oh, you can learn to block." I mean, I watched Philip Lindsay try to do it, and now
It was tough.
He's bigger than him, but Phil will be the first to tell you he had all the effort and the might and the competitive fire.
Yeah.
It's hard to block edge rushers and rushing inside linebackers when you're 5'8", 5'9". Everything's got to be right. Your leverage has to be right. Your technique has to be right.
Right.
And it's only going to take one whiff on that, and he's going to be out of the game. If you get Bo Nix blindsided, that's my concern. But again, you said it, and you were perfect about it. That Peyton had the same cockiness about Bo Nix. It's why I always advance the Bo Nix thing, because I'm like, if this guy's entire Hall of Fame legacy depends on this quarterback, and either it's the biggest fake ever, or he believes in this guy with such conviction. And he's similar with Harvey. So we'll see. Well, now we get to, I don't know if you'll be out there. I don't think I will, because I'll be traveling back from Oklahoma City. Rookie minicamp, anything specific you want to see? Like a couple years ago, we saw Drew Sanders pop. Every once in a while, you'll see a rookie pop, but then you're reminded that I'm not sure Drew Sanders has made a play since then, rookie minicamp. But is there anything you want to see at rookie minicamp, that whether it's Jahdae Barron or whether it's the Pat Bryant, does he look slow, or is he a Tim Patrick type? Is there something you want to see this weekend?
Yeah, that all that stuff, like you said, and then you just sort of like seeing Audric Estime in the locker room, not to be creepy or anything, but it was like, whoa, like it was like you sort of got a better sense of who these guys were. It was imposing, and it gave me a lot of hope. Like, this could be amazing here, and it just never really clicked. It was also great, like last year, to meet Frank Crump, the undrafted guys that are kind of interesting. The Broncos have taken a couple of like interior linemen who actually might have a little bit of a role depending on what they do. So sort of putting a name to a face like that. And last year we got, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name, the School of Mines quarterback that was out there, the quirky.
John Kawika.
Oh boy, it feels like you're close there. I'll never forget like interviewing him, and he was like so confident.
He was tiny too. You talk about a guy that was undersized.
But he just like strode around there and did interviews with people as if, yeah, sure, of course I'm here. I'm like, what are you talking about?
A couple of weeks later, he was in the CFL and he gave it a run. And now I think he's working from like most of Mine's kids, some company for making good money. But
I'm sure he's
one of the greatest D2 players of all time. But yeah, I remember that, how he was like, you're like, man, I mean, I belong here. And it's like,
okay.
Physically you don't. I mean, mentally your confidence does. But yeah, I want to see some of this. I think there's a chance. Again, Barron, for me, I was going to ask you this too before, because I didn't talk to you right after that pick. Barron, to me, reminds me of the Bradley Roby pick in 2014, where they didn't really need a corner. They had the no-fly zone, and then by 2015, they don't win the Super Bowl without Bradley Roby's role in that secondary.
Yeah.
If Barron is who I think he is, he's going to supplant Jaquan McMillan. There's no way they're going to pay McMillan after the season. And I love everything about McMillan's story. What do you think that Barron, this idea that the defense is going to be not good but great, and that will give them more margin for error for Bo Nix in the offense?
They were pretty good last year.
Right.
I don't know, Troy. Like, I just felt like give Bo the best weapons, and
I know.
I gotcha. Like, that's an important player. Like, how about next year's draft? Like, aren't we kind of good enough in that department? And okay, next year maybe we get that sort of guy. I mean, we got Barron at 20. Is there? Listen, the one thing that is amazing about college, they pump out incredible corners and receivers every year. Swear to God, it happens every year. They are unbelievable athletes. And there seems to be a lot to choose from. And even if you didn't want Henderson, I mean, gosh, Troy, like, you could have got Matthew Golden. You could have got Luther Burden. You could have got a real, like, give me the ball and something amazing is about to happen right here in terms of athleticism. And it's not just me. Look at the pay scale and compare what receivers make compared to cornerbacks. It's not like you don't need good players. You need good players all over the place. But again, I go back to this, like, okay, great. We got Bradley Roby, and maybe we kind of did get Bradley Roby, because if you remember, him and Shane Ray both fell in the draft. That's how the Broncos picked him up. That's why they picked him up. So they kind of got that in common with Jahdae Barron too. So maybe, hey, listen, maybe you're right. nobody saw it coming. I think it's going to put Bo Nix on the run. I think you're going to see a very similar offense, Troy, to last year. I don't think you're going to see these explosive running lanes for Harvey, like maybe you'd like to, that he could take advantage of. Gosh, I don't know. And I don't think Harvey's Christian McCaffrey in terms of receiving either, although, he got over on a wheel route on CU that they showed, 10,000 times. That was cool. I am left with a lot of questions, but again, you got the quarterback, and I do think it's important you got players that your coach and your organization believes in, okay? There's nothing worse when an organization is on the fence about a player and they take him anyway, and then you get treated like Drew Lock got treated. And other players, other running backs, frankly, that are taken in the third, fourth round, they're kind of treated like that too, because it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe not. We'll see how it goes. So I do like the fact that they love the players that they selected. I have no doubts they do. How it's all going to work out, I think it's going to be fine. But, I'm going to have a little, okay, I'm going to keep my eye on Henderson and Judkins and Matthew Golden and Luther Burden and Arroyo.
Hampton with the Chargers.
They really didn't like him for whatever reason. They were really, out on Omari and Hampton, and I don't even know why. Yeah, I'll keep my eyes on him too. A smart Broncos fan will be able to understand the decisions that were made cost them in other areas. And it's not about the player, Troy. It's about the pick in comparison to everything else, okay? And this is where we get really confused, in my opinion, with what happened with Pat Surtain when they needed a quarterback. But I won't drag you into the mud on that one that I have personally dealt with for years and years and years. But man, it is something unless you have a quarterback, Troy. But we got a quarterback. That is the good news. We got a quarterback.
You start there, and you bring up one of the things that's been remarkable about the transition from Sean Payton from Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, I joke with people, when Peyton got there, he put up this sign right outside the locker room. It says Compete Street. It replaced the Sesame Street sign that Nate Hackett had out there. But the consistency of a coaching staff, the discipline, the culture, how it manifests itself through accountability and vision. Peyton has a vision for players, and he and George Payton seem aligned. So typically, if you looked in this in a vacuum, they drafted a lot of players outside of Barron that are hard to trust just on initial, when you see it initially. So you're trusting that they have this vision that Peyton can figure it out. Because we saw with Fangio and Hackett that it was just like this island of misfit toys. You're changing offensive coordinators every year. So a guy you got 2 years ago doesn't fit now. They've eliminated all of that. So now the coaching has to be better. They got to coach some of these guys up, and offensively they do have to take a next step. I do think one of the wrinkles, and then we'll move on, that people aren't completely allowing for is that Bo Nix is going to run for 650 yards next year.
Yeah.
He stopped running for a month because of the back injury, but he was on pace to run for a Broncos record. And I think you're going to see him get to that number, because Peyton even admitted last year he did not know what he had in him athletically. And so I think you're going to see more of designed runs, RPO stuff that they use his athleticism. And people, he's going to get hurt. He doesn't really take shots. He's very good about sliding and getting out of bounds. I don't remember one of the biggest hits he took was in the preseason last year against the Colts, where he just dropped the hammer on a former high school rival. He just doesn't get contact that way. So I think that's going to be part of it. But as they move forward, we'll finish with this. And I'm joined by DMac. You can hear him every day, midday. What's that, 12 to 3, right? I got that right? With Tyler Columbus and Scott Hastings on 92.5 Altitude. They do a great job. And obviously this time of year, talking a lot of Nuggets and a lot of Avs, which we opened this show with the Nuggets because we had to. I mean, that was a seminal moment in Colorado sports. Most people that listen to my show, I think, are Colorado sports fans. Of course. And that's a shot and a game, regardless of how the series turns out, we're going to be talking about for a long time. But we'll end with this. The news that now comes out after the draft are contract extensions. I think we all can agree they're going to get something done with Cortland Sutton. I saw Sutton at the Nuggets game the other day. He's in a good mood. You can tell everything's trending in the right direction. But what do they do with Zach Allen? What do they do with Nick Bonito? what do they do with John Franklin Myers? What is some of the news you would tell our listeners to maybe keep an eye on regarding who they invest in moving forward? Because you're going to have to make some tough choices at some point. They're not going to pay everyone.
I believe you're right about Sutton, so we just start there. I think we're all on the same page there. It's working out great. And I've run into Cortland a couple times, too, here in the offseason. You're right. He does seem to be in a great mood. And I don't know if that was the same last year at this time. It was a little sticky, right, if you remember.
Yeah.
I really like John Franklin Myers. He's probably gone. And I think if you looked at the draft, they drafted a couple guys to replace him. So we'll see that. I think it's insane not to try to keep Zach Allen based on the career year he had. And the highest priority has got to be Nick Bonito. I mean, Nick Bonito, talk about a great draft pick, okay? If I want to say, hey, Nick Bonito may be the best draft pick that George Payton has actually ever made. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, to get Nick Bonito at the very, very end of the second round and get the production you have had out of him, where he may seriously be a contender for Defensive Player of the Year coming up in his future, that is ridiculously good. So you got to keep him. I'd like to keep Zach Allen. I'm okay losing John Franklin Myers, although I don't think he's a bad player, but you got to make decisions. And a bump for Court, fine by me. I think they can do all those things. Troy, you?
Yeah, I mean, Cortland's going to get done. I mean, Bo Nix doesn't trust anyone else on third down. He might after this season, but he's his absolute secure. If Bo's Linus, Cortland's the security blanket. He has to have him. So I think that'll be 3-year, $92 million, very similar to the Bowles extension. Okay. You guarantee $45 million, something. I think that gets done. John Franklin Myers, them drafting Savion Jones tells you that they're not going to pay him.
Right.
When you draft someone's successor, and again, Jones could show up and he doesn't look like they thought that's different, but on paper, they drafted his successor. Yeah. Zach Allen, you got to pay, but he's an interior guy, and the league is built defensively on edge rushers and corners. So do they trust Bonito enough to make him because that contract's going to be a monster contract.
Yep.
Like the edge rusher. But I don't think you can walk away from that deal. I mean, everyone's like, oh, we got Q Robinson. I'm like, oh, hey, pump the brakes here. Q Robinson's 240 pounds. I get he was a 5-star recruit at Alabama. The guy barely played there.
Right.
And maybe his best football is ahead of him. I get it. But let's stop talking like he's going to replace Bonito. Bonito is now a 3-down guy who took everything personally. Because when he got to the Broncos, he was a one-trick pony, the ultimate Big 12 pass rusher, make spin move, get to the quarterback. And over the course of a couple years, he turned himself into a complete player. So Franklin Myers is on the outs. The curious thing to me is, where does it go with Bonito? Does he hold a heart? Does he hold and say, because I'm not saying Surtain gave him a discount, maybe a little less, but is Bonito going to need to set the market? And does that create a little bit of friction? But again, you've worked so hard to get back to be stable and relevant. You can't let stars walk out the door. They're not to that. You talk about a cocky draft. That if you start letting stars walk out the door, that's saying that, we just have so many. They're not there yet. Like, come on now.
Everything to me is relative to where you start. And this is, in my opinion, and this is the advantage of finding somebody of incredible talent deeper in the draft, because where they started to where you're going to pay them, it's all relative. If you draft a guy in the top 5 picks, his starting point is going to be much higher. The expectation level, in my opinion, will be that much higher. To get some sort of discount from Bonito should not be as difficult as if he was a top guy, because the relative distance relative to the original salary is pretty spectacular, even at a team discount.
Right.
So that's in general how it goes. And then you just sort of say, hey, do you like it here? Are you comfortable here? Do you want to be here? Do you like the guys? Do you like the town? Do you like this? Do you like that? The other things. I mean, there have been players over the years that have given discounts. Malik Jackson just wanted money, so he's out the door, right? Okay, cool, And other guys, Garrett Bowles was a little bit friendlier with discounts and had the rocky road, so he was happier to stay. It all kind of depends. Yeah, it all kind of depends. And we'll see with Bonito. But I think a ton of money and a chance to win on a team that's close as a group is always better than, chasing a couple of extra bucks and who knows where things are going to go. So I think they get it done with Benito, and I bet you anything it's relatively team friendly.
Yeah, I like where they're at, but they're not where the Nuggets are. And when you watch the Nuggets, you watch what it could look like. And I've covered all three of the Broncos Super Bowl wins. In San Diego with Terrell Davis, in Atlanta with John Elway's big moment against the Falcons, and I covered them, obviously, when they beat the Panthers. And the Broncos, I'm telling you, they're not that far away from being in position. I would say at least a year. But this year, you mentioned it, I've said it, you got to be able to win a playoff game, whether that's on the road or at home. You got to be able to win one, and then that would set you up in 2026, like where you enter the season with Super Bowl or bust expectations. Yep. That's the track they're on. And that's the track that, Sean Payton, if you look at his contract, that's the track he was kind of on. So with this rookie class, and we talked about it, they've got work to do. The Nuggets folks, if they play Wednesday here in OKC, then they'll be back home. They play Friday, Sunday in Denver. I think we're going to have almost all but guaranteed a 6-game series, and it might be 7. I'm buckling up, so I don't know that I'll be at minicamp this week. I'm going to try to sneak out there, but I don't know if I will. But again, this is what makes sports great. Every time they ask, what makes sports great? It's like it's unpredictable, it's emotional. You're mad. You're pretzel. You're tied into a pretzel. But this is why we're so fortunate to do what we do, DMac.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that the Nuggets play on Sunday, I've already told my 2 grown adult sons, my wife is your mother, not mine. So make sure she's doing something. I'll be at the Nuggets game.
Yeah, I don't even want to know how many holidays, birthdays, family gatherings I've ruined because of my life of covering sports the last 25 years. So I get you there. Like, kids, you got to pick me up.
Well, it's their mother. And both of our kids are around the same age in their 20s, right? So, I mean, hey, man, I got my mom. You got your mom. Figure it out. I'll see you at the Nuggets game.
That was Darren McKee, DMac on Altitude Sports. Listen to him again, noon to 3 with Scott Hastings and Tyler Columbus. I could not do this podcast without Hoggatt Injury Law, my A1 from day one, Darby Hoggatt. Of course, Danny Bailey behind the screen, the great producer, and Nate Lundy of Mile High Sports. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.